Patrone with you on Saga 960, Hour 2 of the Marc Patrone radio program. So very glad you could join us to start your week. Guys, this is a crazy story, and it was really interesting when I saw it today. It's on Zero Hedge, but we had a caller last week saying that he had been speaking to people in the Midwest about these mysterious packages that they're getting, mysterious packages of seeds unsolicited from China. And the story is the return address on the packages is always from China. The Washington State Department of Agriculture wrote about the phenomenon on their Facebook page recently. Actually, this was on July the 24th, which is just a few days ago, and said that the seeds are being shipped in packaging that identifies the contents as jewelry. So they want people to open these packages up and basically plant them or throw them out even, because even if you throw them out, eventually they end up in the ground and, they could cause all sorts of havoc, because that's what seeds that don't belong in your particular area of the country or the world, that's what happens. Anyway, Miles Kristen joins us from near Madison, Wisconsin. Miles, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, talk about the situation on the streets these days. I mean, Portland continues to be a mess.
Yeah. Real quick, in Madison, we still have just every day there's a protest somewhere. They're shutting down the street. And some of the protests are really stupid things, like, for instance, they're going to take over the parking lot of Target, the store, and have a glow stick dance party. And it's like, okay, that's not a safe thing to do when you got a respiratory virus and, like COVID out there. And the protesters are doing a really poor job of taking proper precautions as far as the virus goes out here. And I just don't understand, like, what does a dance party have to do with actual legal reform? And then if you look at the situation in Portland, it's complicated, because it's like, well, okay, they're attacking a building, and it's like, that's not going to do anything to change the actual laws. Like, you need lawyers to fight cases, you need people lobbying, you need people actually working on real policies. Like, for instance, I don't know how different it is in Canada, but in the United States, a lot of police have this qualified immunity, which basically helps them to get away with, basically sometimes breaking the law. And then also, John Stossel from 2020 now works at Reason. He did a great piece recently on the police unions. I mean, the police unions in the United States do help a lot of bad cops get away with bad things. And so, real policies is what's going to change the law. But people think, if they just show up at a federal court building or a court building and cause destruction, that's going to change something. And so, yeah, you got these federal police coming in. It's kind of like, well, what did you expect was going to happen? And the whole federal police thing coming in, it's bad. It looks bad for Trump. I mean, they're talking about Trump's secret police taking people away. And it's like, let's not forget when we had the, G8 or G7 different protests, or they'd have the conventions, and then there'd be these protests under Obama. I remember watching footage of protesters getting hauled away in unmarked vans by guys in military-looking gear. Nobody talked about it back then. Same thing is kind of going on right now. And it's not good for Trump, but at the same time, like, these protesters should have been doing something smarter than just attacking a building,
Miles Kristen joins us from near Madison, Wisconsin, right here on Saga 960. There was a protester, I think, shot not that long ago. I was hearing there was a news story not that long ago about one of the protesters after bragging that, that a lot of the people who opposed what they were doing, an Antifa individual, says, well, he didn't think that anybody was going to do anything about it because those people have already been pacified. Then in a sense, people were just kind of lying down and allowing these protesters to do whatever they want, destroy property, smash and grab stuff from stores, set businesses on fire, even commit murders and assaults, that somehow they could just brazenly do whatever they want, and this guy ended up dead. Are you getting the sense that some people are starting to push back a little bit and saying, you know what, enough already, we're ready to take our streets back? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's since George Floyd's death, there has been a lot of people, dozens of people killed throughout the country, be it, during the riots. There have been store owners that have died. There have been protesters that have died. And there's just a lot of tension. And, Americans need to calm down and, use more logic and reason. And, I think that, for instance, people defending their property, like their store or their home or whatever, I think people are probably, in a lot of cases, almost afraid to do it because they think, well, someone's looting my store. If I physically stop them, then I'm going to be the target of even more and more, lootings and riotings. It's an insane time right now, and I keep thinking, does what actually changes policy? Destroying a statue of an abolitionist, for instance, does nothing. A DJ party at a Target. So many of these things don't actually change policy. You have to win the hearts and minds of people if you really have a cause that you're trying to push forth. And everything is so upside down right now.
Well, a lot of these guys, I don't think they even want to change policies. They're not interested in tweaking this or changing that law. They want to overthrow. To me, these people are just anarchists. They're out to destroy everything and throwing the baby out with the bathwater, including getting rid of the Constitution. But the guy I was talking about was a BLM protester, a white guy, young white man, fatally shot in Austin. And he said people who hate us are too big of, well, I don't want to use that word on the radio, but it means basically sissies, sort of, to actually do anything about it. Garrett Foster, this protester, was fatally shot by a motorist in Austin. This was just on the weekend. And this was after he had said on camera that people who hate us, they're not going to touch us. We're on, they're just, they've been cowed, they've been subdued, and they're just going to let us do whatever we want. And so this guy paid with his life. And so my question is, if people start having enough, it's over. If we can't rely on the police, then eventually people are going to start taking their own matters into their own hands.
There's definitely, the question about, people in danger protecting themselves. And then also, you've got a lot of extremists, both on the far left and the far right, and something, there needs to be something to calm people down. When George Floyd died, President Trump did come out with some small pieces of legislation to, he said basically banning chokeholds within certain parameters and so forth. And I think Trump kind of has failed on the opportunity to do more in that. And I think one mistake he's made in all of this is that he needs to, he should have, and he needs to make more of a separation between, the legitimate reasons why people are protesting, and, then you also have these incidences of rioters and people taking advantage of a situation. And I'm so glad that I live in a small town now, because I knew for a long time that Madison particularly, I knew it was going to erupt. And I thought a year ago, 2 years ago, I thought what was going to happen is that Trump would be reelected, and then you would see, crazy riots and people just go nuts like this in Madison. And, it was so quick to be set off into such a frenzy.
No, because it's designed to prevent Trump from being reelected. This is all political, Miles, in my view. You've got...
But at the same time, I would say that a lot of these protests that are going on, these riots, I think that these protests and riots are actually going to, it could help Trump, because it's like, people might not like Biden or they might not like Trump, but they might look at these crazy riots and vote for Trump because they think he's gonna, squash the protests and so forth. I could see how the riots going on and things like that. I could see how they could scare people into voting for Trump.
Yeah, I think it could matter. I mean, I saw a Rasmussen poll that actually had black support for Trump, at least feeling that the country, that he was doing, a reasonably good job, was 40%. I mean, that's unheard of for a Republican to be getting that much support from black people who don't like this violence any more than anybody else. So they see what's going on. A lot of black businesses have been destroyed. And this was on the heels of some great jobs reports. And I mean, Trump supporters, they do it. They say it all the time, and it's true that unemployment amongst the black community, black people, has been the lowest as it's ever been under Trump. So it was the Trump economy that helped make that happen, and that includes Latinos as well. So record low unemployment for black people, and Trump made that happen, not Obama. And so now all of a sudden we have all this violence, and the economy has really suffered during the COVID period, as well as the protests, and so many black businesses have been destroyed. We had a retired black police officer, Dave Dorn, gunned down by protesters. You want to call them anarchists, whoever these people are. They shot this man dead in the streets, and he was a respected black former police. He's retired, but it was just tragic. He was trying to defend a friend's pawn shop, and this guy ended up dead. So that kind of thing is going to send a message to black voters come election time that, what's going on is bad for us. It's not just bad for, everybody else, for, white people. This is bad for everybody. We're paying a price as well. And so I'm just wondering if maybe you're right, that some of those voters, and he doesn't need to get anywhere near a majority of the black vote. I mean, if he gets 20%, the Democrats are going to get trounced.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like you think back to 15 years ago during the Iraq War protests. It's like you have that very specific cause of people who wanted our troops out of Iraq and maybe Afghanistan as well, right? And then so there's a cause that a lot of people could agree with. But then you have radical socialists, and I don't even think they're real anarchists. I mean, people who consider themselves anarchists, but they're not about, say, community and all that. They're really just about destruction. So basically, they pretend to be anarchists, but really they're essentially communists, right? So, you have these real legitimate causes like get troops out of, these countries, or we're going on right now, police reform. You have these serious causes that people can believe in, but then what you have is basically socialists and communists who are basically the turd in the punch bowl, and they ruin the whole messaging with let's do this, and also radical socialist message that is not appealing to the majority of people, and they turn people off of movements. I saw it all throughout the anti-war movement of the early 2000s, where socialists and so forth would just ruin the messaging because they wanted to turn a legitimate cause into part of their bigger messaging. And the same thing is happening right now with places like Madison, where you have people who care about police reform, but then the messaging of that is all being run by your most splinter of a splinter of a splinter, communist, so forth, socialist, so forth, group. And that's why, like I said before, I know a lot of black guys who live in Madison who have not gone to the protests in Madison because they don't want to be a part they don't want to be a pawn, and they don't want to be a part of some socialist agenda when they just care about, the issue of police reform and not socialist revolution. My friends are capitalists, and they can support capitalism, and they don't want to be part of a socialist.
Are they Trump voters?
No. I mean, I think some of my friends, I would say they're kind of apolitical in many ways, but they're for the free enterprise and their ability to make money. They don't want to be part of, socialist this and socialist that.
Well, they're like everybody else or most other people. Miles, I got to run, but thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Miles Kristen coming to us from Wisconsin, near Madison, not quite in Madison, but just outside, from safe distance. He's maintaining a safe distance from Madison. All right, back with more after this.